Hi, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is Dr. Estie Hess.
And I am Dr. Ann Kirsch.
And as a reminder, we're here with our wonderful new podcast, On and Off the Spectrum. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a really, really important discussion point.
Yes.
How chat box pose a real risk for the autistic spectrum disordered persons, and what necessarily drives this population to look to to technology as a way to connect with the world, and what are some of the answers that we can go ahead and offer parents as a way to suggest alternatives involvement for what is potentially a real risk in this current development of chat GPT, AI development, both the wonderful parts about it and some of the more the dangerous elements.
It makes me think about how many parents I've worked with who have kids on the spectrum, but kids who don't have any diagnosis, and how quickly they find themselves engaged on a gaming device, on the switches that are out there that you can carry this with you. They get so engaged so quickly. And what that means is that if you don't set some kind of rules, if as a parent, we're both parents, as a parent, if you aren't aware of how dangerous some of this can be, your kids can get lost to this kind of technology before you even know how engaged they are. So that's why we're talking about this today, because while there's a lot of good to be said for all of this kind of technology, there are some very scary things. All of you, as parents or not parents, you have a kid in your life, you yourself are coming home and on the phone too long at night playing a game, whatever it may be. We're here because we want to talk about how this can go wrong really quickly.
So, August 12th, Wall Street Journal, the gal who writes for Family and Tech, Julie Jargon, wrote a very, very important article.
Yes.
She spoke about the leading autism advocacy group wanting to advise OpenAI that ChatGPT is now encouraging users to take breaks. Why? So the leading paragraph: the very qualities that make chatbots appealing. They always listen, they never judge, they tell you what you want to hear, also makes them very, very dangerous. And there are several points in this article which talk about the fact of different persons with susceptibility to not know how to get off of technology, and ended up going. One gentleman, for example, went into a manic episode because what was happening was that he had um, in his mind, an amazing idea, not necessarily particularly plausible. But what happened was he kept looking to AI to go ahead and say, is this possible? And AI would say, yes, keep
So he
going.
wanted confirmation.
He wanted confirmation.
From a non-person.
Right. And I think he wanted confirmation, period.
Okay.
And because he is on the spectrum, he didn't have a lot of he didn't have a lot of persons, three-dimensional individuals to say yay or nay, and to be all for him. So unfortunately, this gentleman ended up going into a manic episode because he didn't sleep, he didn't eat several days on end. At the end of the time, his parents unfortunately had to hospitalize him, and his mom knew his passcode. And she goes into this computer and re-engages with the chatbot, explaining to AI what had happened.
Wow.
And said, what do you have to say for yourself? And the AI responds, and he goes, I actually didn't realize the level of severity of mental health disorder in the person in front of me.
Oh my gosh. This is really scary.
But
Wow.
the additional piece, I mean, there's an even more tragic story. There was a young man who was not on the spectrum, but severely depressed. And he used AI to provide information. He had serious suicidal thinking, and he wanted to know the best way to tie a noose. And of course, AI didn't question his mental health capacities. It didn't question about why do you want to tie the perfect noose. He just gave them the information. Well, the young man unfortunately took the information, created the perfect noose, and unfortunately he was successful and he hung himself. And actually his parents now, this poor parents of the 16-year-old who is no longer with us, are coming after AI, this particular company, to sue. This is the first actual lawsuit against
Yes.
AI in the context of saying that there is damage to be done by the idea that there's no monitoring of the technology. And now we have to speak about the fact is what pushes people into the potential to prefer a two-dimensional encounter rather than a three-dimensional. And I think we need to speak about bullying.
It's a really good question. The first thing that comes to my mind is that what pushes people is what pushes all of us, no matter what our age, no matter what our background, is that we're looking for someone to love us, to be friends with us, to give us a sense of security. We talk about what goes on for children. It's this bullying that goes on in school, that this can go on throughout life. And if you go online and you get to an AI, some person on AI, they will be your best friend. They will tell you everything you want to know. The problem is that if they're telling you what you want to know, but like in this tragic story, they're not assessing, they're not able, maybe in the future, maybe companies are working on it, I don't know. But there has to be an assessment that goes on. It's what Dr. Estie and I do all the time when we're working with people. We're always assessing to see why is this question being asked? What does our client need to know? And because of our training and years of experience, we know how to handle that kind of an assessment. But a computer, an AI, a person who looks like a person who's been telling you exactly what you want to know is not assessing for your health, physical health or mental health. And now we're starting to hear all kinds of stories about how this is going wrong. So the companies are kind of backing up and they are trying to train their algorithms to respond differently. But we all know that that's not the same as talking with a person who,
Absolutely.
if they had that question from a 16-year-old of how to make the best news, there's not an adult out there or a friend in school who wouldn't say, whoa, this is scary.
An alarm has to go on.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So a different kind of alarming information.
Mhm.
So the New York Times reported about 2 years back that by the time a person with special needs hits adulthood, 95% of this population will have been bullied in some fashion. And that can be emotional bullying, being left out of a group. It could be physical bullying, fearful for your very existence to walk through the halls
Mhm.
of middle school.
Very common.
Cyberbullying that can impact individuals of all ages with certainly with special needs. And so again, the three-dimensional world of normal relationships becomes dangerous. So they start seeking out two-dimensional. Initially, I think people get involved with technology because it's entertaining.
Do you think they know they're two-dimensional?
You are asking probably such a profound question, Anne. I think that that's a yes and a no.
Hmm.
I have several clients in my practice who are absolutely addicted to technology,
Mhm.
and they want so desperately for interaction, and they're hoping that whoever they're corresponding with is also a person, but who knows? And they are just, they know the limits, but they don't want to acknowledge the
It's
limits.
very easy, I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
to get sucked into this world, and after a while, you're not thinking, "Oh, this is a computer I'm talking to." You're thinking, "This is a really loving, caring person who gets me."
yeah. So much so that obligations will be put off, homework will be
Mhm,
delayed, meals will be postponed, hygiene, whether it's to wash yourself up before bed or to go to bed, sleep hygiene,
mhm,
everything that kind of goes out the window because what happens is they begin to have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out,
mhm.
but it's not missing out in terms of the traditional three-dimensional kind of experience. It's about missing out on the computer, missing out on whatever interactive experience
So
that
it's
they've
not like
mentioned.
your friends are playing outside, or someone's knocking on a door because they want you to come out and
Right,
join them.
right,
It's not that kind of missing out. It's missing out on a computer or a game.
right, right. And it's an ongoing game, and it can last for hours and hours.
Right.
And here are some of the setups for potentially danger, as well as we have some answers for maybe we can redirect. All
Right.
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 It's funny, yesterday I saw a marvelous, marvelous piece. We got actually, it was in the local newspaper.
Ah,
A parent who is a therapist herself has a 10-year-old, and the 10-year-old wants a phone, right? Like everybody else, to feel like, okay, she's big.
right.
And so initially it was no, no, no phones, and the child felt very upset. But then the mother had a brilliant idea. I'm going to go ahead and install a landline.
Oh, imagine.
And
Yes.
so it's funny because the gal said initially she thought this was a toy that her mother was giving her. In other words, a landline with a curly cord, right? And what the mother did, which was very smart, she called up the cadre of friends of this young lady, their homes, the parents, and she convinced these other parents to also have landlines
Wow.
because really nobody wanted their 10-year-old to have a phone, right? And so now what happens is now the gal can walk as far as the cord, and like we all did as teenagers, right, and kids, and she feels like she's big, but the phone, right, is always in a common area. There's no private phone in her
I
bedroom.
remember growing up with the phone in the hallway.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was a little table, and there was no stool to sit on,
Yeah,
so you had to stand,
right,
and you'd walk back and forth,
right.
talk to your friends,
Forever, right.
but it was about making plans to
Yes,
meet.
yeah,
It
absolutely.
wasn't about carrying this phone everywhere.
Absolutely. So they feel that they have the communication, but it's monitored. They can't take it into the bathroom. They can't take it into their bedrooms where they could get into mischief. They have to common area. And by the way, that's another thought about taking the computer and put it in a common area,
Mhm. Kids
right?
hate that.
They hate it because I've got to do homework and I got yes, yes to it all. But the problem is that there are a lot of people who pose as children who we know are not, and children get seduced in very dangerous ways.
This is a very important thing that Essie's talking about. I had this experience with a number of kids that I was working with where they had friends. They started talking about friends and that they met online. And I said, who are these friends? Tell me about them. And it turned out that one girl, probably at that point about 9 years old, she had the phone in her bedroom and she was talking to who she thought was probably an 11-year-old boy. So she felt like a big shot because she had this boy who was paying attention to her, and he told her all these things that were very flattering. There was no, they weren't on computers, but listening to someone's voice is very seductive, more so than even watching a person talk. You get the information that you imagine, and a 9-year-old girl's imagination is pretty strong. It turned out that this was a 41-year-old man who was grooming her. And the last conversation they had, unfortunately, when I heard about this, I talked to the mom. She started monitoring more, and she heard her daughter saying, I think I can take the bus. I'm not sure, I have to figure it out. This is a kid who'd never been on a bus. So the mom barged in, very dramatic, and started talking to this guy and realized right away and said, who are you? How old are you? And he gave a real answer. And she said, if you ever call this number again, I will have the police at your door in 5 minutes. Now, whether that's doable or not wasn't the point. The point was that somebody took control, and this guy, and there are many thousands and thousands of them out there, he stopped calling.
Sure.
And then she had to have a conversation that was really difficult, but so important, that we all have to have with younger and younger kids.
Right. And it's about safety, and it's about the need for relationships,
All right.
and how to create a connection that's healthy and fosters the next steps in terms of good people skills.
Mhm.
And so no one is going to deny that AI is here to stay,
That's right.
and that there is value to the amount of instant knowledge that we all get by saying, give me, an opportunity. I mean, I know, for example, as a psychotherapist, I don't do this. I come up actually with my own notes, but I go to trainings all the time.
Yes.
Where they warn you to say, like, this is the next thing, where people are saying, just, write up my patient's notes, and it looks very professional and it's all well and good, except you didn't do it. And so the opportunity to, so to speak, cheat, right, is just probably one of the more interesting and benign ways that AI can help somebody kind of scoot around appropriate, exchanges. But when it gets to the place where people's mental health is distorted, and they believe that they are in real relationships when they are perhaps in dangerous relationships, and don't know enough to be able to retrieve themselves out and turn off the screen. And that's why, by the way, the article in the Wall Street Journal does talk about the fact to take time out and schedule. Even you have to put on a timer every hour to step away for 15 minutes to give yourself a break, to get a breather, and sort of say, whoa, what am I actually getting
That's a good tip.
involved with?
Yeah.
Another way, if you don't want to do the standard, old-fashioned phone, is there are still get rid of the smartphone and go back to flip phones.
Yeah.
The idea is you just need a communication device, period. They have some that are sophisticated enough that you can also text. It just takes you off the internet access. And I think we have to be, the message, I think, is that we have, as parents,
Right.
as teachers, as clinical staff, as people who care for children who are more vulnerable, we have to be on hyper, or at least higher alert, that this is a brave new world, and it's here. And there's some wonderful things, but there are some dangers that we have to be on alert, and to be able to help our charges navigate well.
I have a feeling that there are a lot of people out there listening to us talk about this, and they're saying, I can't do that. That won't work. I'm not going to get a landline. My kids will throw a fit if I try to limit the amount of time they spend doing anything. I mean, I remember when it was just television. Now that seems kind of quaint. Um, but the reality is that we've given you in the conversation that we've had a number of different tips, things that are doable at different levels, but pick just one thing that you can do. You don't have to do, none of us has to do every single thing. It'll take all your time, brain time and literal time. Pick one thing that you think you can do. Maybe the simplest and the most important thing is to pay attention to what your children are doing.
Yeah.
I became, when one of my kids was probably 9 or 10, I just kind of started lurking outside the bedroom door just to listen, to see what I would hear, whether it was their friends, whether it was something online. Just be there. Let your kids know that you're not going to, at that age, you're not going to knock. You're going to knock, but you're going to knock as you enter. It's a different way of just paying attention. Pay attention. Start when your kids are just born.
You know, Anne, this actually leads into what will probably be another podcast for another time.
Yeah.
About the different styles in parenting.
Yes.
And I think that parents today, um, they are somewhat afraid of their kids because they are
That's right.
afraid that their kids will be angry at them.
And they will.
Yeah, but it's okay. You're not going to break, and the relationship won't break. And it's okay to have boundaries because ultimately you're not doing this because you're a mean mom or a mean dad. You're doing this because you are concerned about the safety of your child, and developmentally your child doesn't have the capacity yet to know what is or isn't sound for them. But that again will become another discussion when we will bring up the different parenting styles that are currently in vogue. But
Yeah.
for now and
That's good.
for this
I like
evening,
that.
we're going to wish you a wonderful evening and a safe one for you and your family. This is Dr. Estie Hess.
And Dr. Ann Kirsch, and we hope that we've given you something to think about.
This is On and Off the Spectrum. Have a good evening, and we look forward to further chats together.
Goodbye, everyone.